Okay, assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Today I will going to present about iron, metalwork and structural steelwork. Next. Our group consists of me, Ili Damia, Maisarah, Izryn Nadhirah, Muhammad Safwan, Nurul Izzati, Haziqah, Alya, Shatrah and Nabeella. Then, first of all, introduction to metal, iron and steel. The definition of metal is next. Any of class of elementary substances as gold, silver or copper, all of which are crystalline when solid and many of which are characterized by opacity, ductility, conductivity and a unique luster when freshly fractured. Next. Iron is a ductile, malleable, silver-white metallic element scarcely known in a pure condition but much used in a crude or in pure carbon-containing form for making tools, implements, machinery, etc. Atomic number for iron is predictable is 26 and the symbol is Fe. Then definition of steel is that any various modified forms of iron artificially produced having a carbon content less than that of pig iron and more than the wrought iron, having qualities of hardness, elasticity and strength varying according of composition and heat treatment. Next. There are various types of steel. First one is carbon steel. Looks grey, matte-like and is considered to be vulnerable to corrosion. Next. Alloy steel is a combination of many different materials such as copper, nickel and aluminium. Next. Tool steel. Tool steel is popular for being strong and heat and scratch resistant. Most widely used to produce solid objects such as hammers. Next. Stainless steel is glossy and usually has around 10 to 20 chromium, which is main alloy material. This mix allows the steel to be rust resistant and quite readily molded to different shapes. Next. This is the difference of steel and iron. Iron is a pure element, but steel is an alloy where iron is the main component. Iron is get oxidized easily to form rust and the shine does not last long, but steel is the element is protected it from getting rust. Thus, the shine lasts longer. Iron is the element in itself. Steel is mainly made up of iron and carbon. Iron is not strong as steel and is still less brittle. But steel is addition of carbon to steel makes it stronger than iron. The usage of iron is pure metal has reached a limit, but still most of the uses of iron have been replaced by steel as it possesses many desirable properties. Next.
My name is Maisarah and I will be talking about the Ironmongery. Ironmongery is a mass production of goods that makes from iron, and ironmongery is quite similar jobs for of blacksmiths. Next. Ironmongery is important and is used for safety of the building and also for aesthetic to give a pleasant view for the building. Next. This is the type of ironmongery that have at the door, which is the external door and also for internal door. The main ironmongery of the door is the lock set, hinge and door handles. Next. On the left side of the slide is the example of lock set components. There are several types of lock set for different rooms, such as the tubular mortise latch is the commonly used that can be used with latch rows and knob handles. And also, next one is the night latch. It is used for the multi-residential. It's not required for key access. And others is the double lock night latch, rim locks, deadlocks, sash lock, and rebate doors. Next. The next is the type of door handles that have different purpose for different rooms. Latch is commonly used for internal use where it joins with the tubular mortise latch, and bathroom where the outside face can be unlocked for safety, and the lock where it have a pre-cut holes. And next is the rose extrusion for internal use. And next is the privacy door handles where it have a emergency release slot that is used for bathroom and toilet. And lastly, it have a commercial hardware door handles. Next, we go on with the hinge where it helps the door to be open and closed. Hinge are able to attach the door at pivot at one edge. The hinge is categorized by purpose, flap length, and materials. This is the types materials that commonly used for hinge, which is the brass and cast iron. Next. Next. The slide uh, but, uh, this slide shows the location of the hinge and the common hinge that being used, such as the back flap hinge, casement hinge, rising butt hinge, and butt hinge. Next. Based on the standard specification, it's stated about the fire door and the panic device. So the fire door has a quite special ironmongery where it has a panic device. The panic device is an exit device, can be operated from outside and inside. The panic device doesn't need any instruction as it should be easy to use for people during the panic moment, which is the fire. This is the example of the panic device and the component. The picture below where you have the red color is an example of electrical panic device. It different between the gray color, which is the non-electrical one. So, therefore, the ironmongery makes the building more habitable to ensure the safety of the user. From what I understand, ironmongery makes a door is a door. Without the ironmongery, the door is just like gonna be like a wall. So next, my friend will be explaining about the Metalworks on the next slide.
Next. Okay, Metalworks is actually widely used in the building and construction sector because of their intrinsic properties. Metals are solid materials that are hard, shiny, malleable, fusible, ductile, and have good electrical and thermal conductivity in general. Next. There are two types of metalwork, which is ferrous metal and non-ferrous metal. Ferrous metal is the base metal is iron, which generally makes them susceptible to rust when exposed to humidity. Alloy steel, carbon steel, cast iron, and wrought iron include some common ferrous metals. For non-ferrous metal, it gives them a higher resistance to rust and corrosion, as well as precious metals such as gold and silver include aluminum, copper, lead, zinc, and tin. It also non-magnetic, which is important for many applications in electronics and wiring. Next. For steel, by adding iron to carbon, steel is made which hardens the iron. It also known as plain carbon steel or mild steel with a low melting point that has a higher carbon content. And these are the examples of hot rolled steel sections and angle. Next. Um, next. For stainless steel has a high content of chromium that forms an invisible layer on the steel surface to prevent it from staining. When stainless steel is prepared with the addition of steel, chromium, nickel, nitrogen, and molybdenum, it is corrosion resistant. Stainless steel does not readily rust or corrode. These are the examples of stainless steel. Next. For galvanizing steels require a zinc coating to be applied to the steel. It also requires the steel to go through a series of other bars to ensure that without any other foreign bodies getting in the way, the zinc will completely adhere to iron in the steel. The zinc then fuses into the steel iron and creates a durable coating that does not peel or flake, and it is possible to convert the finished galvanized steel into a finished product that is completely protected from corrosion. So basically, these are the galvanizing process. Next. As for the Shatrah dicing, Shredding process involves heating up to a very high temperature of the steel. It is then placed in a rotating drum that also contains zinc, dust, and possibly some other sand filler. The steel is then rolled at a high temperature in a drum full of zinc, where the zinc will then evaporate and diffuse, bonding to the steel and filling in very small crevices. Next. As for the chromium plating, chromium plating is a method of applying a thin layer of chromium through an electroplating procedure to a substrate. Next. There are two types of metal fasteners, those that produce a permanent bond and those that require either a releasable or a sliding bond. Examples in the first category include screws, nuts and bolts, rivets, retaining rings, and clamps. Non-permanent fasteners include quick-release couplers and clamps designed to be removed at a specific time, pins, and allowing the relative movement of the fastened parts. Next. Welding and brazing. Welding is a method that joins metals by melting the base metal and causing fusion, while brazing metals and flows a filler metal into the joint to join metals. Next. For the aluminum works, after steel, aluminum is the second most used metal in buildings. Aluminum can be formed into many shapes and profiles due to its ductility. For exterior construction, aluminum wall cladding systems are commonly used, with large wall panels require fewer joints, resulting in time-efficient installation. Some of the most common applications for aluminiums are long-span roof systems, instable places such as towers for electrical transmission, in corrosive or humid environments, structures to which maintenance access is restricted, such as mass lighting towers, antenna towers. Next. For anodizing is an electrochemical process that turns a decorative, durable, corrosion-resistant anodic oxide finish into the metal surface. By immersing the aluminum in an acid electrolyte bath and passing an electric current through the medium, anodizing is achieved. Next. As for the sealant, sealant is used for filling gaps and cracks. They are buried to prevent air, water, moisture, gas, noise, dust, and smoke from passing through. There are 4 types of sealant, which is silicone, polyurethane, polymer, and primer. Next. For the weather stripping is used to block air leakage around doors and the operable parts windows. Some of the weather stripping is a closed cell foam, rib, tubular, spring vinyl, spring metal, magnetic strip, door sweep, full threshold, and spring loaded.
Okay, my name is Mohamad Safwan and I will be explaining about structural steelwork. So what is structural steelwork? Structural steelwork is generally used to form a skeleton frame of a building or other built asset, typically consisting of column and beam which are rebuilt, bolted and welded together. Next. Okay, this is a sample of structural steel shop detail drawing. Next. Okay, the next one is a material of structural steelwork, which is it's shaped into a several section, which are I section, also known as a universal beam, H section, universal column, and circular hollow section, rectangular hollow section, and many other shapes. Next. Okay, they have two type of standard section, which is hot roll steel and cool roll steel. hot roll steel, which are formed by moving the heat steel between white roller, which deform into a appropriate shape such as H, I, W, S, C, and angle, cylinder, and so on. And for the cool roll steel, is pressed at slightly cooler temperature, even at room temperature, which ensure that it does not shrink or change shape. Next. So the next one is a typical standard steelwork section. The first one is a universal column. This is a I or H cross-section column that come in a variety of standard dimension. Next. And the next one is a universal beam. Next. Flat section, where a connection between two beams is needed. Flat section can be used when welded along the beam top or bottom length. They may have a tremendous power. Next. So the next one is a circular hollow section, also known as a CHS section. They are also used as a column braces for a steel frame structure. They are marked with a diameter and thickness of the wall. Next. And the hollow section, they are typical rectangular hollow section or square hollow section. They are used less commonly than UC section and UB section between, because they are more difficult to connect to other beams or members. Next. The next one is a roll steel angle, RSH. They can be either equal angles or unequal angles, are often called L-shaped section. They have two types of angle, which is equal angle and unequal angle. Next. Okay, this is a dimension and tolerance based on specification for structural steelwork of JKR. So all steel must be specifically inspected in accordance with the required material quality standard. So the measurement and tolerance shall comply with the applicable specification as shown in the table A and steel grade as shown in the table B. Next. So this is a quality standard for structural steelwork JKR. Next. So the next one is a welding. It's a process of two metal parts may be connected together, and it's connect the two parts of together as is brazing and welding. So the application of high temperature and often the inclusion of other metal or gases allow the metallic component or two pieces to combine and become one. They have a range of various welding techniques, which is the first one is spot welding, metal in a gas, tungsten in a gas, arc welding, and gas welding. Next. Okay, this is a type of weld joint. The first one is a T-joint, H-joint, corner joint, lap joint, and the last one is butt joint. So the welding process, the first one is a gas metal arc welding. Its use of shielding gas around the electrode wire that heat up to metal to be connected together. The next process is tungsten arc gas welding. It's welding of thick section of stainless steel or non-ferrous metal. And the shielded arc metal welding is stick require of power current to create an arc between the stick. The last one is a flat core bore welding. It's semi-automatic arc welding. Okay, the next one is bolting. The word of bolt is typically used for fastener that have only part of their shaft threaded. The fastener with their whole shaft threaded are typically called screw. The unthreaded part of the shaft of the bolt is called the shank. The shaft of the bolt stops the pieces from moving radially, while the head of the bolt and nut, if fitted, is prevent axial travel. So the combination of bolt and nut. The combination of bolt and nut shall be not less than the following: 4.6 bolt with a grade for 4 nuts, and 8.8 bolt with a grade 8 nuts, and 10.9 bolt with a grade 12 nut. Based on so all bolt all bolt assembly that are sizes as tiny shall be replaced. Okay, this is a different bolt grade. Next. So the length of the bolt shall be selected in such a form that after tightening or less one thread plus the thread run or should be noticeable between both of nut and the threaded thread of the bolt, and at least one clear thread should be evident above the nut. Washer. When the members are attached to a finished surface safety treatment which may be affected by a spinning nut or ball head, the washer should be a position under the rotating portion. Next. Galvanized nut. Nuts should be attached after they have a galvanized for free running on the bolt and retaped necessary to ensure adequate tightening performance. So for the bolt tightening and fitted bolt tightening bolt can be assembled using a power tool or completely tightened by hand using acceptable bracket in compliance with BS 2.83. And for the fitted bolt is precision bolt to BS 3692, which be used as a fighting bolt where the hole are after assembled so that the hole can clearance is no more than 0.3 millimeters.
Accuracy of fabrication. All the steelwork needs to be manufactured to an accuracy to allow erection to take place without adding permanent erection stresses into the structure to the unique tolerances. The structural fabrication can be carried out in shops or at the construction site. Next. These are the procedure of fabrication. The first one is surface cleaning. There are three ways to clean, which are the hand preparation, glass cleaning, and also flame cleaning. The second one is the cutting and machining, which is started with cropping or shearing using the hydraulic shears. Section can be cut to length or width. And the third one is the punching and drilling, forming holes for structural steelwork connection by using the numerically controlled tools to simultaneously drill holes. And the fourth one is straightening, bending, rolling. Due to cooling process, the laminated steel may get distorted. Therefore, this method will apply by using rolls or gag presses. Next. The fifth is fitting and rimming. The component will temporarily fitted with rivets, bolts, or small number of welds before the assembly. And the sixth one is the fastening. The strength of the entire structure depends on the method of fastening. Welding is the common method used today by the manufacturer. And the seventh one is the surface will be finished using a sawing, milling, or other appropriate means. And the last one is surface treatment by applying metal coating or painting to give protection of the steelwork from corrosion. Next. These are the examples of permitted deviation in roll components after fabrication that contains in the specification for structural steelwork. Next. Next. The next one is erection, the process by which all the structural steelwork assembled together to form a skeletal structure. Erection contractor is the one who carry out this erection. Next. These are the sequence of activities during erection. The stage 1 is receiving or temporarily stacking products from the shop. The stage 2 is lifting and positioning the member and holding it temporarily in place. The third one is bracing the system temporarily to ensure stability during the erection. Next. Stage 4 is aligning and permanently connecting the members by using bolting or welding. Stage 5 is connection and cladding with the structural skeleton of steel. And the last one is final coating, painting. Next. These are the examples of permitted deviation for foundation walls and foundation bolts under the accuracy of erection. Next. Next. These are the examples of the shop detailed drawing. Roof framing structure steelworks drawing. Next. 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 Next.
Okay. I am going to take over on the performances and tests of steel. Next. Okay, what is fatigue failure? Components which are subjected to loading which varies with time, it can fail its stresses well below the material's ultimate strength. It is known as fatigue failure. It accounts for the vast majority of the mechanical engineering failures worldwide, to 90%. Okay, so why does fatigue failure occur? So due to the formation and the propagation of cracks, it is a three-stage process. So the first stage is the crack formation, then stage 2 is the crack growth, stage 3 is fracture. Okay, based on the standard specification of building works, the contractor shall carry out an examination or test on the materials and its workmanship upon fabricating. As a safety measure, contractors are to conduct tests on the steel as follow. Next. The first one is the chemical analysis of products. They use this for manufacturing quality control, reverse engineering, and failure investigations. The material identification, characterization, and verification. This is to ensure the manufacturing the correct alloy grade and conform to national or international standards. Next. So the second one is the tensile test. It is performed on mild steel or high steel to determine the properties like ultimate strength and percentage elongation. In this test, a steel rod is subjected to a tension load by means of universal testing machine, which is UTM, the machine name, and it is subjected to constant tension load, and the extension cost in the steel rod is noted against the load within the elastic limit. Next. The third one is the bend test. There's two. The first one is the rotating bending testing machine. It is identified as a rotating bending stress control fatigue data curve. This is to create a failure on the specimen where a constant stationary force is applied on the specimen, which creates a constant bending moment. Next. Then there is the reciprocating bending test machine. It is identified as a tension compression strain control fatigue data curve. Next. And then there is the flattening test. This one uses tubular products and conducted by subjecting rings from the tube or pipe to prescribe degree of flattening between two parallel plates. The flattening severity is measured from the distance between the two platens. Next. And then impact test. They use the Charpy hardness test to measure the sturdiness of the specific materials by utilizing the extensive pendulum sledge to break examples. For example, the mallet is brought up to the greatest potential and bolted it into the spot, which is the specimen. Next. And then the last one is the ultrasonic or radiographic exam. This is a non-destructive inspection method that permits high-frequency sound wave into the to be passed through the workpiece material. It is carried out at the frequency of 0.4 to 20 megahertz beyond the human hearing range, and by the sound waves emitted through the boundary of the workpiece to reveal any cracks inside. For weld tests, based on the standard specifications, the contractor shall require to conduct a non-destructive examination in welds in the presence of an engineer. Test 2, the radiographic and ultrasonic. And then in the event of requiring the weld test, the contractor must allow two specimens to be made from the materials that will be used in the structural steel work. The first one is a 200 times 50 mm steel plate with one butt welded joint, and then the second one is a 600 mm long of 12 mm fillet weld. Next. The first one is the radiographic examination to welded joint. It is one of the options of non-destructive testing methods, and it is well proven to be successful as it provides high sensitivity in regard to detecting in any kind of deformity. This examination it produces a generally scattered porosity throughout and there is an eligible darker density area with fuzzy edges. Next. And then the ultrasonic examination to welded joints. This is the ultrasonic testing UT. They featured the best in ability to exact pinpoint discontinuity in a weld. This testing procedure requires high level of skills with proper training, and the testing is capable of detecting finer lines or minor defects in which might not be as visible through radiographic testing.
Okay, so next is the interview and review. So on Sunday, 27 December, we interviewed Tuan IR Muhammad Afandi bin Konting, an engineer from Pontian Johor, to ask questions and opinions on metalwork and steelwork construction. So the interview was conducted via an online platform using WebEx. So firstly, the background information. The name is IR Muhammad Afandi bin Konting. He's 40 years old and he's involved in construction industry since 2003 as a contractor and engineering consultant. His current place is currently consultant and local representative for EPC contractor from mainland China for oil and gas project in Tanjung bin Kukuk, Pontian Johor. So second question is the code regulation and standard specification needed to be followed by an engineer in steelwork construction. So for the structural steel, EN 1993 Euro Code 3 is required when designing a steel structured building. So BS EN 1090 structural steel and aluminium. So BSEN 1090 is a harmonized standard that covers structural or construction steel and aluminium products that are installed in a permanent manner. So the third question is the usage of metal and steel construction. So firstly is the reinforced concrete. Metal is used in reinforced concrete in which steel is embedded in such a manner that the two materials act together in resisting forces. The reinforcing steel rods, bars or mesh absorb the tensile shear and sometimes the comprehensive stresses in a concrete structure. Next is the rebar steel. So there are two types of rebar steel, that is deformed bar and plain bar. So for the deformed bar, it has a high tensile and more better than the plain bar. So this is the mild steel, which is most commonly used a form of the steel, and it has low price and huge versatility. So the next question is choosing the type of steel suitable for steelwork construction. So basically there are two types, the hot roll and also the cold roll. So the hot roll steel is rolled at a temperature above recrystallization temperature, which exceeds 1000 Fahrenheit. And next, it has a scaly surface finish and can be removed by several techniques such as pickling, grinding, or sandblasting. The steel is then cooled at room temperature to normalize it. Then when the steel cools off, it gives slightly less control on the overall size and shape of a finished roll product. And the steel is then cooled at room temperature to normalize it. Then when the steel cools off, it gives slightly less control on the overall size and shape of a finished hot roll product. So this is the cold roll steel. So cold roll steel is a process refers to steel that is pressed with pressure of a roller at room temperature, and it has a 20% increase in strength compared to the hot roll steel. So the exterior finish of cold roll steel is very desirable and have aesthetic value. However, the application of a cold roll steel are limited to a couple of shapes, which include stripes, bars, rods, home appliances, and others. Okay, so which is better between the hot and roll cold steel? So the hot roll steel process can create larger structural components, while for smaller parts that require more precise and durable qualities, then the cold roll steel process is better. So these are some of the engineer software that is used by the engineers to check the strength and suitability of steel structure designed by the architects. So they use software such as TED Pro and Esteem software. So then the engineer will advise the architect on the suitable sizing on the steel structure based on the calculation from the software. So how to choose the best supplier for metal and steel? Firstly, the best supplier must have CM certification. However, there are also low quality steel from CQ. CQ is a steel supplier from China, and usually small contractors would choose cheaper steel from CQ. So the effect of using steel without CM certificate is the steel is not strong enough and will not be accurate as the calculation by the engineer. Okay, so the next question is the issues faced by engineers during steelwork construction and steps taken to overcome the problem. So according to the engineer, some of the issues faced by the engineer include different sizing and steel proposed by the architects in design with the standard size of steel fabricate. Hence, architects are advised to design according to the standard steel sizes provided in BS schedule. So benefits of using metal and steel in construction. So firstly, it increases the speed of building construction and installation. Secondly, the steel structures have better strength and durability. Thirdly, the condition of the site becomes cleaner compared to working with timber and cement. However, a proper detailing and sizing should be produced by the fabricator to ensure accurate installation on site. So the future prospect and further development in steel construction. Steel construction is more expensive than reinforced concrete. However, with government support, it is possible to use steel structures in the future according to the engineer. Nevertheless, the engineer said that the usage of reinforced concrete is preferable and would be continued as it is much more flexible and easier to be shaped according to architect's design. So this is the interview.
Moving on to the future prospect and development. So basically, briefly speaking, the widespread adoption of steel are simple to find, and it's lightweight, and it's easily be recycled and need to be permanently scrapped. So it is possible to repurpose old buildings into new projects. As such, steel is recycled and reused. For example, in the UK, demolition sites about 97.5%, studied by Frost 2020. Next slide. The prospect of the development basically. Next slide. The steel or metal is quite demanding in today's era due to the new infrastructures developments, the growing needs of the increasing middle class in developing countries. Shop managers in the industry is talking about the need for reliable semi-skilled employees for steel or metal work. Next. So, according to the Malaysian Iron and Steel Industry Federation, it expected the demand of steel to increase about 1.59 billion tons in 2017 to 1.63. And another study being made by Session PR Newswire claims that the world steel industry will reach $1.3 trillion in 2015. This means that even though there will be a pandemic and whatsoever, the steel industry will increase furthermore. Though for the last few years, there's something happened whereby been weakening result from the oversupply of steel that has been driven prices down. Next. So what does the future hold for the steel market in the industry? Will it be beneficial to the future generation? Next. So there are some new technologies that have been made in the steel industry whereby there's multiple automated technologies, organizational paradigms, self-learning algorithms, modern modular steel frame systems, newer materials like graphene, and reduce CO2 emissions in the building towards net zero. So these are like the beneficial factors for having steel being used widely all over the countries in the world. Next. But however, there's problems occurred, and the problems that occur are basically the unemployment and negative GDP growth. So GDP is actually the endorsement where it's due to the recent the domestic growth, where it's due to the reason of global COVID-19 pandemic. And then there's also liquidity crisis for high levels of debt. Smaller business and subcontractors also decreased, and having like the current metalworking firms to keep pace on newer technologies. So next. So the outcome for like the overview, the prospect of future development in steel industry is basically the global steel production grew by 5.8% in a month and 13% a year later. Yeah, even in Malaysia, I think as such to Haziqah been said earlier, I think it's actually really beneficial to use steel in the industry. However, due to the fact that it's actually reinforced concrete is way easier than steel to use, and then maybe for example like the China being the dominant country to have steel industry mainly supplied there, maybe that's why the steel production grew. So the new structural materials and system, they're smart, wire adaptive and sustainable, will evolve more. Manufacturing driven technologies such as machine learning, lean manufacturing, and of course modular construction can be transformed in the construction site way easier. Engineering curriculum would rely on high value problem solving capabilities, and the sharing economy would disrupt how building facilities are planned, constructed, and run. So new technologies would need new technology skill sets that are more manufactured. So I think that's all from us. The conclusion is Nabeella. Next.
Conclusion is understanding on the differences between iron, metal, and steel, able to differentiate between types of metalworks and structural steelworks, get opportunity to have an interview session with IR Afandi regarding the metal and steel construction, learn about the various type of welding, standard steelwork section, and procedure of fabrication, future prospect and development were also presented. Thus, an overall view of Ironmongery, Metalworks, and Steelworks were covered in this assignment. With all that, we thank you.